All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating case study on leadership succession from all the way back in the 7th century. And believe me, it's got some powerful lessons for any organization today. We're looking at what happens when a visionary founder is gone and how two totally different leaders first saved and then scaled an entire empire.
I mean, think about it. This is the ultimate leadership crisis, right? It's the challenge the early Muslim community faced right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. The sources say his passing left even the strongest people, like the famously tough Umar, just completely flabbergasted and lost. The whole enterprise was in shock, and its future was anything but certain.
So, into this moment of pure crisis, a new leader, Abu Bakr, steps forward. And here's the key. His goal wasn't to create some bold new vision. It was to save the one they already had. He was the ultimate stabilizer, exactly the kind of leader you need when the very foundations are shaking.
You have to hear this. His very first speech as leader is just historic. It wasn't a power play. It wasn't a big list of promises. Instead, it was a revolutionary contract with the people. Right from day one, he lays out this framework for accountable, humble, and conditional leadership. It's just a stunning display of servant leadership from the get-go.
Okay, let's break this down because it's huge. From that one short speech, you can pull out 4 timeless principles that became the absolute bedrock of his administration. First, accountability. He's literally telling people, you have the right to scrutinize me. Then the rule of law, where justice is for everyone, no matter how powerful or weak you are. Next, truthfulness. Loyalty is based on honesty. And finally, this kicker, conditional obedience. He's saying my authority is not absolute. It only exists as long as I rule justly. I mean, that's radical stuff for any era.
Of course, principles are one thing, but putting them into action when everything's on fire, that's another story. And Abu Bakr was tested immediately. A massive rebellion erupted, with several tribes saying their loyalty was to Muhammad the man, not to the new state. This crisis became known as the Ridda Wars.
And get this, nearly all of his advisors were telling him to compromise. They were saying, look, just let the zakat tax slide for now. We need to conserve our strength. But Abu Bakr made this incredibly decisive and deeply unpopular stand. He basically said, no way. He knew this wasn't just about money. It was about proving that the institution itself was permanent and would outlive its founder.
And this just shows you everything about his leadership style. The guy was completely accessible. No bodyguards, no sentry at his door. You could literally just walk up and talk to him. He built his government on consultation and trust, handing over huge responsibilities to the most capable people around, like putting the brilliant Umar in charge of the entire justice system. It was a cabinet built on merit, not on power.
So, the state is stabilized. The immediate crisis is over, but now a totally new challenge pops up. How do you manage explosive growth? And this is where Abu Bakr's successor, Umar, enters the picture. If Abu Bakr was the stabilizer who saved the vision, Umar was the operator who built the systems to make it scale. And you can see the contrast in their approaches so clearly right here. Under Abu Bakr, the financial system was simple. It was based on trust. Money came in, and it was distributed right away. But as the empire got bigger and bigger, that kind of informal model just couldn't keep up. Umar saw that they needed a professional, rules-based system that could handle vast resources efficiently.
His first major innovation was the Beit al-Mal, the state treasury. Now, this wasn't just a building to stash cash. It was a formal institution, like a professional finance department for an entire empire. It was all about centralizing the collection of funds and then strategically deciding where that money needed to go, for public works, for defense, for social welfare.
And his second move? The Diwan. This was a truly revolutionary idea. It started out as a central registry to pay salaries to soldiers, to professionalize the army. But it quickly grew into something so much bigger. It became a census and a system for distributing funds to widows, orphans, and the needy. In fact, many historians consider it the world's first real welfare state.
So, what we have here are two profoundly effective but fundamentally different types of leaders. Two different archetypes. And the amazing thing is that each one was perfectly suited for the challenges of their specific time, and the success of the first literally paved the way for the second. And if you map these roles onto the modern corporate world, the analogy is crystal clear. Abu Bakr was the crisis CEO. He's the leader you bring in to steer the ship through a massive storm and just make sure the company survives. Umar, he was the chief operating officer, the COO. He's the systems builder who takes that surviving company and creates the infrastructure for it to go global.
So what's the bottom line? What can managers and leaders today really take away from this 1,400-year-old case study? Well, the lessons are surprisingly modern and incredibly relevant.
First, authority has to be anchored in humility and accountability. True authority is earned, not demanded. Second, good intentions are great, but they're not enough. You have to build fair, transparent systems that can actually scale. And third, and this is so important, you have to recognize what the moment demands. Do you need a stabilizer to preserve the core or an operator to build for growth?
You know, when you zoom out, you see this perfect leadership sequence. First, the visionary founds the whole thing. Then, the stabilizer secures it when it's about to collapse. And finally, the operator scales it by building the systems that let it endure and grow. Each phase needs a different kind of genius, and for an organization to truly last, it needs all of them.
So we'll leave you with a final thought. Think about your own organization, your team. What phase are you in right now? Do you need a leader to preserve your core values during a tough time? Or do you need one to build the systems for that next big stage of growth? Understanding that question, well, that's the key to applying these lessons. Thanks for joining us for The Explainer.